that's the posture of Jesus. Giving, giving, giving. And if we're to live our best life, the best life I can imagine is Jesus's. And I think as we give, we'll look more like his.
Welcome to the Loving God, Loving People podcast, where we talk about what it looks like to follow Jesus in our everyday lives and how, in the end, all that matters is God and people. Here's today's episode.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm sitting here with Megan Marshman. Megan, thank you so much for joining us. For those of you listening or watching, you might not realize this, but Megan doesn't live in Arizona. So if you've seen her a few times at Sun Valley, maybe you've heard her a couple times on the podcast, you live in California, you're speaking tonight, and so you drove out early this morning, just rolled in, and now here we are doing the podcast. Thank you so much for making this happen and being a part of this. Super appreciate you doing that.
Oh, I'm grateful. On the drive here, I was having a conversation with my dad about how much I love what I get to do. So driving, turning our life into an adventure, traveling wherever people want to hear how God's changed my life, that's exciting, and I want to be doing that, and I love doing that here.
Now, a decision that you've made, which I love this, is you bring your kids with you. And so I get to see your kids whenever you come out, and you've decided this is not just Megan's going out and speaking at different places, but you're bringing your family with you. So the kids are on this adventure as well. How has that been, having kids on the road with you?
I'll tell you, that adventure began actually before I had my first child. I remember being at a conference and a guy that was on the board of the conference came up to me. I can't remember if I had spoken yet. And he walked up to me. He said, "I see that you're pregnant." And I said, "Wow."
Wow, that was a bold...
It was. I'm like, "Nice to meet you." And he said, "You know, I have only one parenting advice, and here it is." And I was thinking, didn't ask, but I'll receive it. Sure. And do I look pregnant? Okay. And he said, "Every yes is a no, and every no is a yes. You'll figure it out." And then he walked away, and it was like he was just gone, and I was left with my thoughts of every yes is a no and every no is a yes. And what I had realized early on in having kids was that a lot of things that I say yes to is a no to them, a lot of it. And I kept thinking, Jesus loved little kids.
Yep.
Jesus is who I want to make famous. Why does my yes to Jesus have to be a no to my family? And I'm now, so I want to bring them everywhere. I want them to see everything. I want them to be alongside me because every yes is a no and every no is a yes, but I can say yes to my kids while saying yes to what the Lord has me do. And mind you, it might look like saying no to comfort, convenience, ease. Smoothness. It might be a little messier on the journey, but we call messy an adventure, which makes even messy purposeful.
Yeah, I love it. And I love, too, every time you come out here, I get to meet more family members of yours because you have a whole team of this support system of family members of your sister and parents and in-laws and all of that I see out here, your cousin. And so seeing all the different family kind of rallying around and supporting you in that, too, is really neat to see family and friends and all of you guys making this happen.
My sister and I talked yesterday. She's, again, on this particular weekend journey adventure, and we were talking, and she said, "You know, before Randy died, every time I asked you how you were always great, awesome." And she goes, "And I believed you." And I was like, because I think I was always awesome and great. And I even would post often, I feel like I'm living in the midst of the good old days. Like God gave me a glimpse to appreciate what was right there. And she goes, "But can I tell you what's also a gift?" Yes, that great season was a gift. She said, "But also a gift is when I ask you how you are in a moment and you say, 'I'm okay.' And you say that in this weird balance of both hope and also reality. Hope of, I'm okay in the midst of loss. I'm okay because I have the Lord, I have people around me, I have my family, I have support. But also only okay because I was used to being good for the most part, easy. Like life felt kind of on this trajectory of like success and doing well and loving what I'm doing and serving people and having margin and creating this really healthy, slow rhythm." And she said, "Just so you know, you only being okay or you needing me is a gift to me too." I didn't know that. I thought being needy was a burden. And so I lived as often as I could, not needing anyone. And I thought that was helping everyone. And what I'm realizing is the people around me who love the Lord, that want to love me, have found a gift in my needing of them. That flipped
Yeah.
That is a flip to me. That is so upside down to what I thought.
Yeah.
And I was shocked by that conversation.
Yeah, I think we have almost like an aversion to being like, hey, people should serve and all of that. I don't, because I see that as opportunity for people to use the gifts God's given them. Bible teaches that God's given everybody gifts, and he has work that he's prepared in advance for us to do, that we're gifted for a reason, and that gifting's not for ourselves, it's to be shared with others. And so I've seen again and again people go, man, thank you for letting me serve. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. And I've seen that. We've gone on mission trips, and we're in really tough situations with, extreme poverty or whatever it is, and it's heartbreaking work. And people are just so overflowing with gratitude for what God's allowed them to be a part of. And I think that's how God's wired it. And we miss out on it if we go, no, I'm okay, you're okay, let's all just smile at each other and everything's okay at church and fake it. But there's something about actually getting into the grittiness of serving people and all of that we find out that that's what we were created for.
Yeah. How long ago did someone I can't think of how long ago it was, someone said, oh, it's better to give than to receive. And I remember as a kid going, sure, sure. And it's not until you get to experience the joy of giving that you get to understand that is true, that it is better. It's better for our souls. It's better for creating a rhythm of how to live well, to be someone that gives than to receives, of course. And what we'll see this weekend with this message is that's the posture of Jesus. Giving, giving, giving. And if we're to live our best life, the best life I can imagine is Jesus's. And I think as we give, we'll look more like his.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about, so you've been preparing for this weekend. What's some of the things that God's been teaching you kind of in the preparation time and as you've been studying Scripture and spending time with Jesus? What are some things you're learning?
Yes, so much, which I look forward to sharing. But I'll say some additional pieces that I don't have time for this weekend that I would love to have time for here is the role of the church.
Yeah.
I've been studying in Isaiah the name Wonderful Counselor, and imagining that counselor is meant to be personal to us, right? He's a wonderful counselor to me, to you, to us. And as I've studied that, it's made me wonder about the role of the church, because it's without being careful, what can quickly happen in church is people show up to church to be spiritually fed. Then I go do the work of the Lord, fail miserably, come back to grace the following weekend. And then the pastor again feeds me the truth. And then I go and do my life, and maybe I have success, maybe I have whatever it is, and then I come back, and it's almost like we've compartmentalized where God wonderfully counsels to Saturday night or Sunday morning. And so it's made me wonder, what would it look like for us to know that intimately outside of that space?
Yeah.
And if the case is for us to know him as wonderful counselor outside of Saturday night, Sunday morning, then how do I, as someone that contributes to Saturday night, Sunday morning, I should just say weekend services, and that would be a lot shorter.
Save a little time. That's fine.
Yeah. How can I change what I do to equip people in that instead of just say, no, your job is to come to me, and I'll tell you about how he wonderfully counseled me. What are your thoughts on the role of the church in people's lives? Why does church matter, not just for that moment, but for the rest of the week? Robert.
Oh, man. See, Megan, normally I ask questions, and then the other person answers them, and turning this around. The church is meant to be a reflection of who Jesus is in the world. And so if I were to take kind of the big meta-narrative of the Bible, is you had the Father sends the Son. So there's a problem. Our sin separates us from God. God says that's not where the story's going to end. And so the Father sends the Son in obedience lives this perfect life, gives his life for us to pay the penalty for our sin. By the power of the Spirit, resurrection happens, but Jesus says, now I'm going to send the Spirit. And so I'm going to go, I'm going to send a helper who's going to walk alongside you. And so the Son sends the Spirit, and then the Spirit sends the church. So at Pentecost, everyone's filled with the Spirit, and now the ministry of what Jesus had been doing now is happening through these people by the power of the Holy Spirit. And so we're given this commission to go and make disciples and teach them everything Jesus taught and baptize them. And so that's why the church exists. We're meant to be a light to the world and messengers of, ambassadors of Jesus, of, hey, there's this great news. I don't know if you've heard it, but God saves. And here's how he's done it. And he offers grace to you. And so that's the role of the church. Now, we have our huddle, right, where we rally together. And there's something beautiful about that moment when we're all, worshiping. And I look around and I go, okay, what do all these people have in common? Jesus. That's it. There's so many different walks of life and so many different ethnicities and socioeconomic and all of that. Yet here we all are gathered together as one. because we have the same Savior, and He unites us, and that by His Spirit we're all now one together. It's this beautiful moment, and so we honor God. We pause from our week and we say, we're going to give you this time. We're going to worship you. We're going to praise you. We're going to learn together from God's Word, and then we're going to go out and do that. And beyond that weekend experience, we do that together. We build relationships. We have people over to our house, and we share meals together. That's part of what it is to be the church. In fact, that's why the church took so much ground early on, as they'd open up their homes and say, we'll feed you. Even if you don't believe what we believe, our homes are open to you. They called them the agapes, these gatherings, these meals that they would have. And the Romans were going, why are they feeding everybody? Why are they feeding not only their own poor, but our poor as well? And they're welcoming them into their homes, and they're looking after the sick, and they're doing all these things that didn't make any sense in the Roman world and in the hierarchy of things. And yet the church just continued to grow under persecution because they were reflecting who Jesus was in very practical ways all throughout the week. It wasn't just a once-a-week exercise. It was an ongoing, we're opening up our homes, we're caring for people, we're sharing this good news of what's happened in our lives, and that's how the church grows. I don't know if I answered your question.
You
but
did, and I'm going to give you a person that's walking into your church, and I want you to speak to them, given what you just said.
Okay.
So the person walks in, they have not read their own Bible in a long time, but they really like your preaching. Mm-hmm. Congrats. Good job, Robert.
Yeah, thanks.
And Chad's, they like it. They love it. They show up every week. But they're finding that the culture feels very loud. Mm-hmm. But then they, on Sundays or the weekend services, they show up hungry to be inspired and prepared for the week. And then they go into the week, and then they try, and then they come back the following week exhausted. Mm-hmm. What would you tell that person would be a better rhythm?
Yeah. So again, if our job is to model Jesus, as I would look at what's Jesus's rhythm. And when you read, we don't have every detail of his calendar. We don't know all, what did Mondays look like for Jesus? We don't
How
know
cool
that.
would that have been?
It would have been great if we could
probably
have just
pretend like we know, number one, feed a multitude.
Yeah, kept a Google calendar we could subscribe to and be like, oh, this is what Jesus is doing on Tuesdays in the afternoon. Okay.
Heal.
But we have little glimpses of he was in a habit, which the writers of the Gospels, which are kind of the, biographies of Jesus, that he was in this habit of he would go off to secluded places. He would go off by himself to be with God. Now, if Jesus needs to spend time with Jesus on a regular basis each and every day, you and I definitely need to spend time with Jesus on a regular basis every day. And so that's part of the pattern that Jesus models. He rested. He spent time praying. He spent time in solitude. And then he also spent time doing ministry where he would serve. He would meet needs. He would care for people. He would pray and he would bless people. And then he would teach kind of just a little bit along the way. He actually didn't teach way too many things. It's not like there's books and books and books and books that we have of all of these teachings. He kind of taught a handful of things and repeated them in just different contexts. But he lived all of those things out on a regular basis where he would spend time with God. And so my recommendation to that person is find a rhythm where you are having times of rest, because God commands it. He doesn't just say, hey, rest is a good idea. He puts it in the 10 Commandments, like take a day, set it aside, and it's holy. I've blessed this day that God doesn't just exist in a time and place in a sanctuary at a church, but in a space and time, that he transcends even just physical space to where he says, no, I want to meet you in a certain time. And it's this time of rest each week that the Bible calls the Sabbath. And so I would say let's look at those patterns and let's start applying those to our own lives and then experiencing just being with God, which the ministry of Jesus, what we could do on weekends is great of like, hey, this is who Jesus is. And we can share the good news, right? And we can invite people to respond to it. So that has its place. And I think the weekend services are a great place to bring somebody who's maybe investigating, trying to figure this thing out. But it has to go beyond that. Yeah. At some point, Jesus says, okay, now be with me, spend time with me. And then eventually he gets to now remain in me, which is where people learn how to spend time with Jesus on their own. They don't have to have somebody hold their hand to tell them, here's what you need to know or here's what you need to do, but they can just be and allow God to speak to them in those moments with God. So
yes.
Yeah.
You said he's here he wants to be with you in a time and a space. And there's a new space that technology.
Yes. So those of you who are listening, we've just now, we've entered into a new digital space called the Metaverse.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so you can put on your VR Oculus goggles and you can, quote unquote, attend a weekend service and participate in it virtually now from anywhere around the world. And the first weekend that we roll this out happens to be the weekend that you are speaking, Megan.
Yes.
So welcome to the Metaverse.
Yeah, it feels good to be in it, I think. It was fun scrolling through the calendar where it's like NBA games, Justin Bieber concert, Sun Valley Community Church in Gilbert, Arizona. It was a great to be something that exists, that people would love God and love people in a new space. And if that space is going to exist, we're going to bring the truth there. What a powerful place. But it does make me wonder, how do we do that well?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So as you're kind of like, you didn't input on this. We just said, "Hey, this is happening." So
yeah, I remember.
How do you feel about that? And what are the things? Because obviously there's pros and cons, right?
Yeah, of course.
The pro is, hey, this is a brand new space where people are gathering, and so part of our job as the church is to go to where people are and to share the gospel. So this is an opportunity for us to do that. There's also going to be cons. So talk about what are some of the pros and cons that you've seen as you've kind of pondered speaking in the metaverse.
Pro. Jesus wants to meet people where they're at, like you just said. And the best part is when we go into that space, wherever it is, we get to give testament to him doing that to us. That is compelling to me. And so it's not just, let me exist in this space with you, and here's, it's what we do in preaching, right? It's going, how does this truth transform me? And then how do I get to just tell people about it? Because good news is meant to be shared. And so we have lots of good news, so might as well share it where people are at. I like that. That's probably the biggest pro. The con that's immediate, anyone. I've told a number of people about what we're doing here. And everyone is almost, there's that feeling, and I want to name it, that, what? But it's not real, but it's trying to be real. It reminds me of the moment my dad came home from Costco one day and he gathered me, my sister and mom. He's like, girls? We're like, yeah. He's like, I bought a DVD player. And all of us are like, what's a DVD player? And he was so cutting edge in that moment. He was beyond where I was at. And I looked over at my Disney movies that were lined up in the VHS cassettes
tapes.
With those like thick things they came in. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, Dad, what are we going to do?
You could drop off like a 5-story building and it wouldn't damage the tape. It would just have this like protective layer all around it.
It would almost land softly. Yeah. And I was like, Dad, what are we going to do? Throw those away? And I laughed at it. And I thought, and it's kind of like, also reminds me of the moment my dad got my mom a cell phone for Christmas. And ready for this? She took it back and said, I'm not going to use that. How good is that? That's what this feels like.
Yeah.
A moment of going, what? And yet, if God's going to use, or if God's going to create someone who's going to create technology, then let's step into it, because Jesus goes into really confusing, hard places, and he just wants to be there. So, but the con is just going, okay, so how do you, you can't touch there. And so I think the biggest con is that people would be satisfied only living there for church.
So that is a great point. And this is something that, not just talking about Metaverse, this is just online church in general. There's a lot of people. Some people do online church because they can't physically gather at a location due to proximity or whatever. Some people do it just because it's convenient. And it's, I just kind of wanted to get the message anyway, and there it is. Or I like the music, and so I could still hear the music, and I don't really sing anyway, so I can just do all that online. What do you think is missing from that actual human eyeball to eyeball interaction that happens at church?
Yeah. There's looking into people's eyes, and I heard that can happen in the metaverse, which we'll see how that works. But I think it's looking into people's eyes and asking how you are. In the same way, my family and I drove this morning to get here, and then suddenly I sat down, you looked me in the eyes and went like, hey, how are you? And it was a moment I stopped and I felt seen and cared for. And I think if you're watching on a screen, you may take truth, because truth is being spoken, so that's a given, but to be seen and cared for, it just makes me think of Jesus in the midst of the crowds, like stopping for the one. And I think Jesus wants to do that for each of us. And I think we could miss the personal nature if we are just viewing it and not entering into it, which that's where the metaverse is so interesting, because that's the point, is to say, stop viewing it and enter in. So again, maybe a pro, maybe a con. It's exciting, though, because Jesus wants to exist in all places. He created all places. I can only imagine there's a place called heaven that he exists in that's better than all of it. So in the meantime, we're just going to make him known in any place that we're aware of.
So for the person who does attend regularly in person on a weekend, but they don't ever look anybody in the eyeball and they kind of sneak in, sneak out, would you say the same thing for them, that they're missing what church is meant to be?
Yes. I think we need to linger longer. That's the best advice I'd say to that person. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. Absolutely it can. It can stretch us. It can bring us out of our comfort zone. But if I can give any wisdom, I'm going to give what I wish I would have known at like 20. At 20, I remember sitting in and being self-conscious. So not like weak or just sad and lonely. It was more like I was just really aware of myself in environments. I think that's what we become. Is like, I'm too aware, so I just want to get in and get out, get what I need and get out. Don't let anyone see what I think I see in myself, right?
Or don't make any mistakes, or don't blow it. Just, in and out. Here we are.
So the one thing I would say is you can switch. And if we had the power to do this, if the Holy Spirit were to speak to us in this moment, and whoever's listening, if this was a gift for you, I hope it was, because it was for me. Imagine going into church for a different purpose, no longer just to receive, but to go, okay, God, if you're the main character, it's not me. I'm not the main character. If I'm the main character of my life, then I walk in, of course, and everyone exists to serve me, including the church. But if we can make God the main character, which we know that he is, but if we can make him the main character, then we can walk into church and ask a different question, not who sees me, how can I leave early, how can I slip out, how can I be comfortable, me. We can switch that to, okay, God, if you're the main character, okay, how would you use me as in your narrative? So who might you have me see? And I'll tell you, that perspective switch from who sees me to who might you have me see, switching who the main character is, what the point of church is, again, full circle with our conversation, it would switch and make every environment purposeful, and you would suddenly become a gift to that environment, even if the way that he's planning to use you is through your weakness, which that verse throws me, that God's power is made perfect not in your ability to woo. His power is not made perfect in talent. His power is not made perfect in your ability to be successful, good at life, attractive, compelling. No, his power can be made perfect through our weakness. So for you, whoever that person is, they may be at an advantage because they're aware of their weakness. But now, ask God, who might you have me see? What might you have me do? He'll use that powerfully.
How many opportunities, and I'll speak to myself right now, how many opportunities have I missed that God wanted me to be a part of something in somebody's life because I was self-focused, because I was just, no, I don't want to be interrupted. Jesus' whole ministry was full of interruptions. When you read it, it's like, did he have a plan, or did he just live throughout the day and just accept all the interruptions that God brought to him in those moments? Because he seems to constantly, like you mentioned, the woman touches his garment, who touched me? And now this person has a need, and now they've come to me, or they're up in a tree, trying to see me, or they're sitting on the side just yelling out, Son of David, have mercy on me. You see all these moments, and it's just interruption. And it was almost like he had that mindset that you just said, of not, okay, how can all these people serve me? But no, what are the opportunities in each and every day to see somebody and to hear them, to listen, to speak wisdom? Sometimes he would do that and they wouldn't take it, but he would give it anyway, or to serve or meet a very practical need. And how many times have I missed those opportunities to be a part of what God's doing because I'm like, we got plans. I already know how this service is supposed to go. I'm going to get in, get out. And there's all these people around us that God might want us specifically to go be a representation of him to them. So, okay. One last thought.
Okay.
So somebody's been coming to church for a long time, and I get this question sometimes, I want to go deeper. And they talk about that, and what they mean is they want more Bible study, or they want more Greek words from you when you get up to preach, or whatever it is. And that's typically what they mean, is they want on a weekend, they want longer teaching, or they want something new that they hadn't heard before. Have you ever dealt with that? And what advice would you give to somebody who's kind of at that point in their walk with Jesus where they go, I want to go deeper? What does that actually mean? And what would you recommend to that person?
Well, I was that person probably about a year ago. And then I stepped into, even more education, specifically in the area of spiritual formation and soul care.
Which is, you're working on your doctorate.
I am.
On this.
And what I'm learning deeper is, for me, not my job or your job. I thought it was. I thought, like, I hate to actually admit this, but I used to think like salvation, God's job, sanctification, my job. I have to work. I have to do the spiritual disciplines. I have to. And I would even preach towards that of like, okay, so now read your Bible more. Read your Bible more. Do more spiritual disciplines. Get up earlier. And I was preaching toward that as if sanctification was our job. So going deeper for me is not working harder. It's opening up yourself to the one whose job it is to transform. So practically, if that's you and you're saying, I want to go deeper, and then I go like this, okay, take time with the Lord, open up your heart, and see what he wants to reveal. And so you'll see this weekend, if someone's already watched it, rewatch it. When you get to the end, when it comes to how we respond, this is as deep as I can go, because I, as a communicator, can't actually pry open the depth of your soul. The Spirit can. And if only our posture would not be, I'm going to do it myself. It can't be our willpower. It has to be our openness to the Lord Jesus through his Holy Spirit to transform, not my willpower, but transform my character. And sometimes the way that he does that is to allow us to actually see ourselves. Open yourself up to go, God, what do you see? Because if the Spirit's in there interceding on our behalf, he knows what he's praying for. And he's going to use absolutely everything, our frustration, our anger, if only we let him make us more aware of what he's already doing in us, we would go deeper than any person possibly could. So I would say the question shouldn't be toward us. The question should actually be toward the Lord. God, where are you going deeper in me? He can go deeper than anything possible.
That was good. I don't know what you were going to answer, but that was a really good answer. And so there is a discipline to that. There is a setting aside of time and all that, but there's a posture to it.
Yes, and I'll say this, spiritual disciplines become less about my effort to perform for the Lord, and it becomes more a mirror to what's going on. So if I'm struggling in my time just spent in prayer, that's a mirror of going, wow, God, I want you to fix me really fast instead of just commune with me. I've almost made this into me again. See what happens if you turn everything that happens. So if you start to sit down for your Bible study and you just don't care, start there. Okay, why don't you care? I don't care because I want a quick fix, and it feels better to get however many likes on Instagram. That feels better, God. And that conversation is the deeper he's talking about, which is going, that stuff that you do on your own by yourself and try to will yourself to be better, stronger, and more disciplined, you're doing that on your own. So I'd say the deeper is, and even in the question, I hear moralism. I hear it coming out in even the question of going, what more can I do? And it's like, what if you knew that the answer wasn't actually what more you could do? It's what does God actually want to do? That's a very different question and a different posture. Same discipline, different objective. Open versus trying.
Yeah. Learn to just be with Jesus and let him do what he does.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so good. Megan, thanks for taking time and sharing thoughts. So excited for you to be out preaching again this weekend.
I'm excited as well.
And if you haven't caught it yet, she's also going to be speaking in the Metaverse. So
watch out.
Welcome.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Loving God, Loving People podcast. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and click the bell so that you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this conversation, we'd love it if you would like this video, leave us a comment, and even share it with a friend. Doing that will help more people meet, know, and follow Jesus. And lastly, you are always welcome to join us each week for one of our services right here live on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.